Hello, everyone. Welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy. I'll be your host this evening. We're the Battle of Souls podcast. I'm joined by Adam Camilleri.
G'day. You're not the host other evenings, mate. Have you not been the host, decades in perpetuity?
You got to mix it up a little bit, just to, keep it fresh just a little bit.
The perpetual Paul Murphy. I'm sorry.
Hey, everybody.
And Red Powell.
What up? Thanks for dragging that one out, Adam.
Nice. I live to give. It's fine.
I do appreciate that you noticed a change. Here we are. We're going to be talking a little bit about the balanced data slate and the winners and losers and how it impacts us and the armies that we play, and in general what we think it might do to the meta. I mean, we look at the stuff week in and week out, and was there enough that happened to make a shift to that top end, and then also is it now are we closer to balance than we were last week? And I think that's an interesting thing to think about. So that's what we're going to do in this week. We might do a little bit of hobby stuff at the end, depending on the time that we have. I hope everybody enjoyed the texture segment, or like when to texture, when not to texture. And then, I know we've talked about some of the stuff that we've, I'm going to mention something later about the hobby stuff, basically, but in that same vein of doing it your own way. Welcome, everybody. It's the Balanced Data Slate. The MFM, some points changes, some changes with codexes, rules. I'd like to point out right out the gate, the Blood Angels got better.
Yes. Points increases. Yeah, points increases accurate to the new Standguard hitting on 2s with an extra attack on the lances. The spears. I got to say, so many people have been like, if I'm running Liberators, I still might run the swords or whatnot. Well, I'm like, no, play the spears. So everyone has a sword in the 41st millennium. Somehow they've still defaulted as the sword is the quintessential stabby of choice. The spear is a unique and specialized weapon that, I think just adds something cool to the Standguard.
I look at it as anytime you can maybe save yourself a CP or something,
Yeah, coming in stock with Lance rather than having to use it in, your Liberators or your Gladius, should you be playing those. But if you're playing anything else, I think the Lance is fantastic. I think the Lance is really good.
It is, agree. What I was kind of defaulted to, been playing with the Lances and love it. So, seeing that change is just nice to get in there and want to do some cool things there. You feel like you sometimes you felt a little underpowered if the dice were going against you, and this helps even that out.
So I want them. So they're in line now. So there's pretty much everybody's unique melee spicy guy, so sub-faction unique. For things like Sword Brethren hitting on 2s, Sanguinary Guard hitting on 2s, Flawless Blades for Emperor's Children hitting on 2s. I wonder if they're going to follow through and make things like Chosen hit on 2s at some point, because they're kind of like the last outlier, but they're not a sub-faction specific.
I don't mind that being like the hallmark of the elite unit. Yeah. Like whatever your specialty faction is like you do something
Deathwing Knights
with that on that level.
Yeah. Thousand Sons don't have one, but I think that's in keeping with Thousand Sons to not have a melee specialist. More so than, could be very powerful if they gave them hitting on 2s to any of their melee stuff, like the robots or the Scarabocol Terminators. I suppose the only other holdout is the fact that despite being purely the punchy faction, World Eaters don't have a unit that hits on 2s, but mind you, I don't think we want that either, because they do not need the assistance.
So many attacks ways about. Although I was being slightly facetious about the Blood Angels. They obviously did medium here in this and got a little bit of attention. Some armies got a lot of attention, and maybe some armies did not get enough attention. So I guess in the theme of what might be the standouts on that level, you mentioned Thousand Sons. Maybe we jump into that right now.
So we see this every now and then with less regularity than we used to, where you will see the patented triple hit or the holistic, hit him for every direction, get him surrounded by the nerfs. Thousand Sons have had significant changes. The first and foremost being the biggest one, where essentially your army rule was 3 very good army rules from other factions. You had Oath of Moment on tap. You had a Move Again, on tap as well, and as well as you had Doombolt doing some more damage, having some more AP. These things used to be very consistent in when you could get them off, because you would roll your 2 dice, look at your dice, consult your star chart of what you need to do your Cabal points, and then add a 3rd dice if you needed to. And then if you failed, you could try again with another sorcerer. You had it like as much redundancy as you wanted, you could build into your list. That's no longer the case. You will now get one shot, one opportunity. Eminem is lining up across stage right now to sing 8 Mile just for you, because you've got one chance to get these things off. And if you fail, too bad, so sad. It's a huge holistic change to how T-Suns will operate.
Spaghetti.
Yeah, Mom Spaghetti. Yeah, it's all over the place. You failed. Knees weak, arms are heavy.
Do you think Thousand Suns is just the fact that they are, they've got this stuff built into what you expect from the faction? They've got lethal psychic powers. They've got the durability of being Chaos Space Marines. That it's just kind of difficult to get all that flavor appropriately, even to a take all comer situation.
Yeah, I think it is. I think if I had to go back to the design space of Thousand Suns, you want them to be something that has diversity, because the nature of the Warband Psychic is something that's very diverse. There's a whole pantheon with different identities within that, and so you want them to have a diverse skill set. You want to have a diverse set of tools that they can wield. I was of the opinion that the rules printed in the Codex versus what they have now was a little bit too judicious. Like, as a Space Marine player, I just have Oath of Moment. They get Oath of Moment plus 3 other things that are as good as other armies' army rules, and
look,
they get to have
all the chaos, and you
goal.
get cool stuff too.
Yeah, fair. Well, turns out you don't. Turns out you get the cool stuff for a couple of months, and then they pay that bad boy back.
Then you're like, wait a second, you're supposed to be dust. All right.
Yeah, it did feel a little over the top that they got to have all of them in the same turn all the time. There are a myriad of other ways they could have gone about this, which would have resulted probably in T-Suns players being a little bit more comfortable. As it sits right now, huge risk reward, which feels very warpy. Feels very psychic. Big risk reward. Did I roll badly and the warp didn't play nicely with my brain pan and I don't have an army rule, or do I still have 4 because I rolled well? So yeah, risk reward is on the table for the T-Suns, the Dusty Boys.
There we go. Eldari seem to be pretty much still intact too. Little change on the Swooping Hawks as far as like points goes, but there's still a lot of great units in that codex.
So all I know is that every Eldari player I've talked to is very happy, which makes me scared. They're like, yes, we didn't cop any major changes because they thought they were just fine. Now, one of the biggest issues, so we always talk about the meta as a circular thing, a thing that with swirls and roundabouts. It's a world
living, breathing ecosystem.
There's tides, there's all sorts of things. The biggest hit to Eldari is the fact that the biggest things that they were in the meta to Predator got worse, and so you may see less of them, and so they may find themselves in more grindy matchups where they have to use a different skill set rather than Fuegan's going to activate 3 times and all your knights are going to be gone, which is kind of where it was previously. You'd had Fuegan 10 fire dragons in a wave serpent, and if they activated 3 times out of the game, you probably killed 3 big knights and you won the game. So they were there to Predator those big things. With those armies, both Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights taking hits, fair hits, by the way. I'm not going to sit here and say Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights are in a bad place. I played both those armies, and I'm still very happy with both those armies. I've even played some games with the changed detachment, the Valor Strike, and I still think it's very good. I might talk about that if Paul wants me to. But they're fine, but they're going to get taken less. So the things that Eldari really prey on are going to get taken less as well. So that could result in a bit of a sliding result for them. But then once again, they've got a super deep codex. They can adapt and they'll take some other stuff, and not a big deal.
I mean, all great units in that. There's basically, you can find a answer for threats out there in that Eldari codex. You
can look at it like this. So Fuegan and the Fire Dragons and the Wave Serpent hasn't gone up in any points, but the reasons to take them have lessened. So despite the units not getting touched in any manner of way, that you might just find less reason to have that unit in your army. And so by there, you can see that as a meta change.
You can see that. And I do think it's a very high skill cap army, Eldari, because you can get yourself out of position. You can lose your units. You can, you can mistime some of your battle focus.
You're buying right into what they're selling there, Paul. They all want to tell you that it's a high skill army. They all want to be like, yeah, I'm you, but better.
I'm just saying, don't touch the points. I got a lot of cool painted models over there. But it was interesting that the Swooping Hawks were the ones that got the point increase, in my opinion. But we have seen them being taken quite a lot, and they do have some very important maneuvers.
Yeah, so they were
tricks.
They were part of the mechanized or anti-knight playstyle that they had, where they were the ancillary units that would go and do the chip damage. Like between the Swooping Hawks, you had very good odds to kill a small knight, if not half to 3/4 kill a big knight, sometimes higher, depending on how hot your lethal hits were. And then that was part of that package. And so whilst that did go up in points, and I think it was kind of warranted, like 10 Swooping Hawks was very cheap before. They've gone up by 20 points now. They were, I think it was 170 previously. That was very cheap for the sheer control of the game that they gave you, where they had the ability to score any card whilst doing significant damage, mortal wounds, lethal hits, good shots, anti-infantry shots, anti-anything shots, really, if you get crit 5s from Lycus.
Often your opponents will be having to come chase you down, opening up pockets of places on the tabletop. And so they always had opportunities to stick and do something to a point you were saying.
Yeah, correct.
Let's go to Astra Militarum. So, this has been, I think, Astra Militarum seem like they're always knocking on the door. Like they have a lot of play, a lot of potential. Rogodorns got a little bit of the attention this time, both Commander and the regular Rogodorns got a little bit of an increase. I don't think it's that much of an increase, though.
What do you guys think?
No, not in the scale of stuff, especially when you look at what they decreased. I think Rogodorns are, and you see 2, 3 in some of these armies that are doing pretty well on the table. And so I don't think the increase was significant enough to make a player take them off the table. And then you look at some of the decreases they got. I mean, what was it, 30, 40 points decrease across the board on every Baneblade chassis. I'm not saying that that's necessarily going to drive Baneblades on the table.
Taking the Baneblade chassis?
Some of us like big tanks, so...
How many Baneblades do we own between us on the show? By the
way? It's a high number.
I have 2.
So we're up to 8. Red, how many do you have?
I have 8.
And so we're up to 16.
Yeah, I've got at least. I do have at least 6. I'm looking at 2 right there. I know.
So we're up to 24 Baneblades on the show. Each of those dropped by 30 points. How many points did we save, everybody?
We're gonna have our own apocalypse.
My list stayed exactly the same because when you adjust the points for the Rogodorns, the point changes on Gaunt's Ghosts and the Engineers made it all balance out.
That's actually, I was going to ask that question because often when there is a point increase, I don't necessarily look at the points that unit cost. I think about what you have to sacrifice to get it if you were playing the exact same way before.
Yeah, if you're committed to it, what does it change about your list construction? And Tanya hit the nail on the head. Not that much for guard. You have so many little squads you can tweak around, move around, downgrade, upgrade. Might just be a Chimera becomes a Taurox and you completely offset 2 Dawns. Things like that. And yeah, perfect example. 2 of my units went down, 2 of my units went up. We're good here.
Yeah.
720, by the way.
Part of me thinks that maybe you might have trouble if you have the 6 Dorn list, which I've had to fight a few times, right? Because then you're not going to have that character that stays in the back line kind of screening stuff out, or maybe it affects those lists a little bit more. But the ones that are a little bit more Swiss Army knife or balanced in what they're taking, I don't think it's really going to make that much difference at all.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Guard are going to absorb this, no problems, and they're going to stay about the same position they were in the game, which was relatively good, quite healthy.
Then I know Death Watch is another army that Red, I know you play.
That's right.
And we were talking a little bit in the pre-show about there's some points you may have gotten on the Imperial Agent side.
Yeah, I mean, if Blood Angels only got better, Imperial Agents got better because Death Watch got a 10-point decrease. I think our Watchmaster may have also gone down too.
Correct.
We've made enough points. I can include now. There was some changes. I can know, and I get it. for all the people that are out there playing Imperial Agents, thanks for hanging in there with us. But the data slate said that I can no longer attach Draxus to my Kill Team Deathwatch squad, which is kind of unfortunate because it used to be because they were battle line, you could put an Inquisitor with them, and now you can no longer put. I mean, you're not allowed to, and so Draxus wasn't a bad option to attach to him. I had that in one of the builds, and so. So I guess I won't be bringing Draxus with all 60 of my Deathwatch, but I did get 60 points back, and plus another 10 for each Watchmaster, so 90 points. So not doing too shabby.
What does that get you? They get you what, like two RBD squads or something almost?
It could be like a Void squad. It could be a Rogue Trader and just and how some of the points move around. You can. It's not a bad gig. Not a bad gig at all. A couple little things move around here, and you could have another sister squad. That's pretty good. Pretty good deal.
I know we need to talk about Death Guard a bit too, because Death Guard is something that I think people were anticipating maybe a little bit of a heavier hand with, but it didn't happen. I think they think the points was enough.
I want to believe that they simply forgot to attach the page. I want to believe that there wasn't a conscious choice to nerf. To add points and or rules changes to possibly the 3 to 4 biggest competitors to Death Guard. So in the previous meta, Death Guard and both Knights were agreed upon to be the 3 strongest armies in the game, and they were creating a lot of feel bads and a lot of problems for people who had to go out and buy whole addendums to their armies because they couldn't fight this high toughness, this aggressiveness.
You mean you build a bunch of units available in their codexes that they were not
correct.
previously using to give them the advantage into these factions.
Tanya pointed out 6 Rogal Dawns has been a thing that's come and gone, but guard players are like, well, if you're going to play 6 big knights, I guess I got to go muscle for muscle and do something similar myself. So here's 6 Rogal Dawns. And a lot of people did that. Now, both of the knight variants have been disincentivized a little bit via rules and points. Death Guard did not cop any rules changes. And my God, I was of the opinion the rules were more problematic than the points, even though the points were very judicious prior to the points changes that came a couple of weeks ago. To have them be untouched is, I feel, a big asterisk on the upcoming meta. I'm of the opinion Death Guard's probably the best army in the game, sitting right now. And not only that, a bunch of their competitors have been hit.
They rein back a little bit.
Correct. But a bunch of others have come up. So it remains to be seen if there's a new contender that can pressure and, give us a foil to Death Guard waiting in the wings. But as it sits right now, if I had to just go on a hot take, I'm real worried Death Guard is going to be in a very powerful position.
We have really not talked about the new Votan and stuff too. Maybe we'll do a little bit after the break.
I got some
there's some good stuff in there too. And I'm talking about things that get injected into the meta and then create these, that swirl of what kind of beats what, at least on the base list wise versus things.
Because if there isn't enough depth in your codex that you have, a one size fits all, like a lot of Marines Guard get to do, where they have good Swiss Army knife builds that can kind of do a bit of everything. You want to at least offer a rock paper scissors opportunity. If that's what you've got in your sandbox, in your tool set, things like Emperor's Children and Votan have been forced into something in a similar position in the meta because they just didn't have unit variety to play a spectrum army that had a bit of everything. And then the generalship, when you have that spectrum of an army, you use your generalship to wield it appropriately, and then you can get close to anybody, beat anybody, etc. And so you default to, well, if I can't beat everything, what can I beat? What can I have security in knowing that I have the tools to account for? And Votan is looking like the one that's massively on the up for having unit diversity and the ability to really punch up.
Another army on the up, Adeptus Mechanicus.
So my running gag at the moment is that someone at Games Workshop HQ in the design team has an AdMech symbol on just a random date where they're like, this is when we're allowed to give a death, we're allowed to supercharge AdMech. Up until this point, we're just tweaks here, tweaks there, tweaks there.
Bring out the good Prometheum.
Exactly right. They have supercharged AdMech. AdMech is going to be a contender. It's got fantastic new rules. Belisarius Call now feels like a Primarch level character for the first
Given
time in a long
rerolls.
time. Oath of Moment. It just
Yeah.
like gave them the best part of Space Marines. Yeah, and said you guys can just have this now.
He
too.
did get a point. Like you went up in points.
Yeah, 40
somewhat
points.
significantly.
Yeah.
I mean, significantly, percentage wise of what he is, but at the same time, that is a great rule,
Well,
and that is, I mean, when you're dealing with that like lethality, that quality of firepower that army can produce.
How many points would you pay to have Oath of Moment in your non-Oath of Moment army, guys? I'd probably pay 100.
At least 100 points. Like if that was just a 100-point enhancement.
Yeah. I'd happily pay 100 points to every turn. Just be like, that one's dead. Now that one's dead. And that one's dead. It's stupendously powerful. Call is, as far as I can tell, pretty much an auto include moving forward for AdMech. In addition, the Ballistari got a points hit as well. It's only by 5 points per chicken walker, as we call them. And there's now a colloquial term that if you ever do decide to take the maxed chicken, like the full Ballistari package plus Call, you have to call it. Yeah, you call it the BFC bucket, the Belisarius Kentucky Fried Bucket. I think you have all the chickens.
My goodness, are we entering a pack now? We have to do that. Is that what you're?
Yeah, we have moved as a community. We've moved away from calling our army archetypes funny stuff. We've lost.
We need to get back to it.
We need to get back to it. Muscle Beach, Thick City, all these things from yesteryear. These things that stick in our brain pans. I want our funny name archetypes to come back.
Look, I hope that move works out for you. Let me read Carl's rule here. Invocation of Machine Vengeance ability. Change to Invocation of Machine Vengeance at the start of your command phase. Select one unit from your opponent's army until the start of your next turn, or your next command phase. That enemy unit in your Machine Vengeance target is your Machine Vengeance target. Each time a model in a friendly Adeptus Mechanicus unit makes an attack that targets that target, you can re-roll the hit roll. So just want to put out there, there's no conditions you have to fulfill other than just doing it.
100%.
Yeah.
And what I really like about this is what they've done for Call, because you can see they've done similar things for Gas Call as well. So they've gone, at some point, I think one of the rules writers has gone through and been like, well, who are the keystone, like, Primarch level characters that don't see enough play? And we want them to see play. And they've gone out of their way to make sure Gaz is looking extremely powerful as well. Call's auto include, like, they're doing really good. They've even, they tried something with Fulgrim. They tried.
I'm starting to think Fulgrim is underappreciated.
I think if they drop him 20 to 30 points every slate since he's come out, every MFM since he's come out, there's surely not too many more times they can do that before we're just like, lol, 300 point Fulgrim every list. Let's roll.
I don't want to get too far. Sorry, I did talk about Fulgrim there for a second, but I want to talk about the Mechanicus still, and like these units these armies that we're talking about that I think are going to get the rise up, that are going to be contenders in there, and because we're going to see them as contenders in more, I guess, numerosity, things like the Death Guard and things like the stuff that is maybe still at the top is going to get challenged in ways it has not been challenged before. I mean, we shall see. But, blow up drones do wilt under, let's say 9 Iron Strider shooting.
100%. Well, those Iron Strider Ballistari now have access to rerolls to hit. They have inbuilt rerolls to wound from Twin Link. They have sustained hits, which doubles down on the rerolls to hit. And they all got an extra shot in a previous balanced Dataslate update. And so they've really juiced them up. They're exceptional units now. Mostly because there's one statement that you can say about 10th edition 40k, because of the terrain we play on, because of the play patterns of the game. Fast gun good. Generally, if you can make a gun fast, that will be a good gun. And Ballistari are now reaching like a superstar zenith of like, we are fast and we have good guns, so we are good.
And they've got a ton of units you can take to play the board game, the board control game. There's great weapons, great overlapping synergy between the various character models and stuff.
Yeah. It's a really good. They've done really well with the design space. I don't think they've quite pulled the trigger on giving AdMech like a huge damage buff like they just did. But the way AdMech works together, how everything keys off the battle line synergies, I've always thought was a fantastic design space that they did with that book. Probably the best thing about that book is like you have to take battle line units, and we will make your battle line units super impactful in the gameplay of your army. I wish they did that a little bit more with some other armies.
Nice. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about the changes that we've seen, and also mention that we're talking about Votann a little bit because there's several great standout units, but there's one that have people kind of shaking in their boots. See you in a minute.
FTN is brought to you by Discount Games Inc. Please visit them at www.discountgamesinc.com. And don't forget to ask Jay about ways to save even more on your hobby projects.
Hey everybody, we are back. Thank you so much for checking out our sponsors. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe. If you made it this far, maybe leave a comment. Let those algorithms know what's up. We left off the last segment saying we're going to mention Leagues of Votann. We have not really talked about the Leagues of Votann because I think it came out while we were traveling, and so we kind of missed some of that. But there is a unit that I wanted to highlight that I think is going to start seeing more and more play, and that being the Ironkin Steeljacks. They've got a crazy ability called the Purge Response. Each time you target this unit with the Fire Overwatch stratagem, hits are scored at unmodified hit rolls of 5+ while resolving that stratagem. If units from your army have Fortify Takeover, hits are scored on an unmodified 4+ are resolving Overwatch. And they have a heavy Volkite Disintegrator, which has devastating wounds, 6 attacks, normally hit on 4s, strength 6, neg 1 AP, 1 damage apiece. Again, with that devastating wounds and 6 attacks. I've heard people like basically it's a unit of 6, basically saying this is once you're the recipient of all that pain, you develop a healthy respect for these Steeljacks.
I love this unit's inclusion. It adds something that a Leagues of Votann army didn't do before. Like, so you had your Hearthguard, your pseudo Terminator profile where they had the 2 up, but they're only 2 wounds. They did have a reasonably good toughness though, but now they've gone to another level with the Steeljacks. Also, I have to take a moment to appreciate the position that this puts Votann in the lore, because I mean, we're not crazy, right? This is Men of Iron. Like this is Shackles.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say, but they look like robots of some kind.
Yeah. So I should crack open my book and just have a little read through of the fluff behind these guys, because I'm intrigued in what this does to the ever unfolding narrative of our great game. Is this a return, or is this heralding something? But either way, I think this is a fantastic multimodal unit, because it still doesn't punch that badly to go through screens in combat if you take the guns, or vice versa if you take the blades. They offer something in combat as a pressure unit that actually warrants a decent response from your opponent. Whereas things like
T6 with a 2+ save for the melee guys.
It's pretty good, man. It is pretty good way to go. I think these guys are fantastic. In addition, there's a bunch of really, really enhanced Votann units. Previously, the Thunderkin was just an anti-tank unit. Like you couldn't really put enough buffs on it to make it great in a tank heavy, mech heavy meta. But now that unit is truly well rounded as like a good fire-based unit that could kind of do whatever you want. Despite what guns you may feel like taking for your meta, you can still put enough buffs on it that it's going to hold its weight into a variety of different targets. Whereas previously it was it was similar to Eradicated previously, where it's like, cool, if you don't have tanks, these guys are good for 5 Marines a turn. It's not that great for their points.
The reason I'm highlighting this in the way that we're doing it is because I think there's a lot of things that are going to come up. They're going to bubble up where people did not take them en masse before, because either they didn't have to because maybe the Knights were so strong or whatever, but because of some of these changes, it's going to let some of these brewers go back to the lab a bit and then come up with something here.
Absolutely. In addition to that, we talk about the killer and filler balance of each individual faction as it stands, where pretty much every faction in the game can take super powerful, offensive units. Every faction has some form of that's worth taking. But the filler is a lot of the time what defines how strong a book is. Previously to this, the best filler you had, or the best utility units you had available to Votann, was Sagittars plus Hearthkin. So your basic battle line unit, they only had one option for battle line units, and then you just took the transport that came with the battle line unit to split them and to make them, more effective. Have more influences and activations of that. Now with the Jaegers splitting via the new carriers, they've even gotten lower to the ground in their filler options. Hey, it's short killings. Yeah.
Oh no!
Got it in there. I even told him I was going to get it in there. And even lower to the ground with what they can do with their filler. So the Jaegers was a must take in an open play environment. If you did not know exactly what you were playing against, you had to be taking Jaegers to mean that you didn't, auto lose turn 1 going second against suppressor armies. So you'd have to get that infiltrating unit up, give yourself some board time, give yourself a chance to use your scouting abilities, which you had on so many of the data sheets you had to take because you didn't have that many. And if you weren't getting to scout because someone just put 5 mandrakes in front of you, well, it's a lot of points you paid a premium for on those units to get those abilities you don't get to use. So the Jaegers were a mandatory inclusion. But now Jaegers is almost its own archetype. Building around Jaegers is just a strong place to be, because when you split them with the carriers and you just get these super efficient, small activation units, funnily enough, the closest comparison that I have to what these guys offer is Kabbalite splitting into Venom, or if we go even older, with Scouts in a Land Speeder Storm, if you want to go all the way back to Antiquity. That's what these guys feel like. Yeah.
Oh, that was
really cool
tactic back then.
It was fantastic back in the day.
A lot of play, and I know you mentioned briefly changing gears a little bit to Orcs. Yeah. Orcs is another faction that I think is going to. I mean, we already know people love Orcs. Heck, there was a tournament last week with 10 Orc players in it.
Yeah,
so
it was 70 players and 10 of them were Orcs, and we're like, how? What's going on? It's fantastic
because people love Orcs, and now I think Orcs got a bit of juice back in them.
How do you feel about it, Tanya, if you're across it? The changes?
Yeah, so a lot of the changes for me don't directly affect how my list works because I'm playing a really oddball dread mob list. However, the points changes are great. I think I got 60 points to play with now, and in Orcs I can do quite a lot with that. So I'm excited for it. I don't think I've got enough sort of stuff that I can cut in my list to actually bring Gaz. But I don't, just getting one more unit on the table with those extra points is going to be awesome.
Nice. Well, like I said, they've gone through and they've identified the 4 kind of Primarch level characters that they weren't seeing much play, and they've actually activated them in different reasons, in different ways. So they gave Call an army-wide buff that'll affect everything in that at the moment change. They've given the Lion 2 Primarch abilities to be active from all game instead of just the one that you'd usually get, which is quite a strong change for the Lion as well. He was already on the cusp, and now I think he's a solid take, but maybe not for every army. Like I said, for Fulgrim, they tried. But Gaz, they correctly identified the problem with Gaz was not his points, was not his damage or his durability. The problem was getting him there. The logistics of using Gaz was the issue. And so then they correct a huge model. And previously, how much did he take up in a transport?
10 or 12 or something.
Yeah. You couldn't put him and a relevant unit in any transport. And so they correctly identified that was where he needed to change. So now you could fit Gaz and a full unit of 6 Meganobs, which did come down significantly in points, in a battle wagon, and all of a sudden have one of the premium melee units in the game with a delivery system. Because that was a big issue with Gaz. It's I have a giant base and I'm too big to go in a transport. I guess I'm hoofing it. That's a bad place to be.
So now he takes up 4 models in a battle wagon, which is like you pointed out, incredibly significant. It can also join more units or opportunities to join into other units to get a little protection from that. Boys and knobs added to there.
So I've already know of some of my orc mates who are very keen to try Green Tide with Gaz and unit of 20 boys, or Bully Boys with Gaz and unit of 20 boys, and then you double War with Gaz and he'll give that to the 20 boys, and double advance, double invuln turns, stuff like that. I think Gaz just doubled and or tripled in the available ways you can use him on the table, which is very exciting.
I personally am really excited for the changes to commandos.
Yes.
Yeah, being able to combat squad them, for me personally, for how I use commandos, is going to make them even more usable, because I very sort of it's like an aggressive defensive play to basically deploy them as far forward as possible, and then if I get first turn, they literally just run out and get as close to the enemy as possible. So now if I don't have to keep one big line of 10, but I can do a 5 and a 5, I just think I'm going to get so much more use out of them, and I'm going to be able to hide them better behind terrain as well in case I end up going second.
Perfectly said. And yeah, I think it's a huge change for the commandos in that. There was a lot of debate within Orc chat about which is the best like filler utility unit, because you had Stormboys, units of Warbikers, and commandos. Now, commandos always lost that comparison because there was so much, because we were forced to take the 10. And now Warbikers have come down in both the 3 and the 6 configurations. And so they're all about the same points now, because if you split the commando points, 5 commandos and 5 Stormboys are comparable, and the same 5 commandos, 5 Stormboys are comparable to the Warbikers. So it's actually like a pick 'em. You like whichever one you think you like more kind of is the correct choice, because they're all cool. I also have to point out that combat squadding, which is what they've given to commandos, has been completely removed from Space Marines.
That's right.
So they now combat squad.
That was sorry.
No. What I love the idea is that Gilliman's come back, in the Crusade, and he's rewritten the Codex Astartes, and people are starting to run things somewhere between legions and chapters now, not chapters or legions, but somewhere in the middle. And so they've done away with combat squadding, but the version of the the Codex that the orcs are reading, upside down, inside out, they're like, combat squadding. This is a beaky tactic we can adopt. And they're like just years behind the game, and they're just figuring it out now. I love it.
It's fine. My boys can do it because they're all painted blue.
Oh,
yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. The book was written by somebody who wears blue. They're blue. Obviously, they're going to combat squad.
That makes total sense. I just think there's so much more life breathed into this. Like what was, I don't want to say like, a different tier of army, because, we've seen a lot of people out there, with success, and of course these faction experts that have learned, how to adapt in every situation. But I think this is going to give a lot of like life to what might be these maybe factions or players that have been struggling with things in their particular area. When there was the dominant list there, they had to fight through in every third round of every RTT or whatever. That landscape is going to change a little bit, and there's a lot more, I guess, of a puncher's chance with now several of the factions we've talked about.
Yeah, well, I can tell you right now, Eldari don't love the Orc matchup anywhere near as much anymore. Because previously, like, cool, you took a unit of 10 commandos. Okay, so those 10 commandos went and overkilled 5 aspect warriors, rangers, whatever. And now it's 2x5. So on turn 1, if you go second, each unit of commandos can go kill 5 aspect warriors, etc., etc., etc. And then if you want to take the Warbikers, they can DACA, do a bit, then charge in, because of course they can yeet themselves off the table very effectively.
Kills toughness 3 stuff really well.
Hordes coming back if people decide to go Green Tide with orcs, or even like a more horde-based, Warhorde esque style. Also a bit of a problem, because we know a lot of the Eldari lists right now are packing quality, not quantity, especially with the Hawks going up in points, which was one of their best anti-infantry platforms, and previous points increases to things like War Spiders, which was their other one. So all the meta is starting to swirl, with some factions coming up, some coming down. It's getting really exciting.
It is very cool out there right now, and I cannot wait to see how it impacts things. And let us know if you're excited about it. Do you play one of these factions that we talked about that got a bit of a glow up with some of this stuff? But a lot of units out there, a lot of factions got a little bit of attention. I think it's cool. That they've got their finger on the pulse, have identified some things that really make these more balanced, more fun. I think is also an element there too, and that people are still enjoying it when they get out there and play in these events. Changing gears to our hobby segment, and this is a segment we've touched on before, but since we talked about textures previously, I want to highlight the fact that there are some ways that you're quote unquote supposed to do things out there, like the way that rust and things like that work in our world, or the way that leather behaves in our world, and the way flames, get darker at the top in our world. Well, 40,000 years from now, none of those rules have to exist, and especially not with your models and what you want to do with your hobby expression. So don't be boxed in to those types of scenarios. Rust can be however you want it to look, and oxidize the way. If it is oxidation, maybe it's a promethium burn or whatever. Like, it can function the exact same way, the way that you want it to do, the way it looks best on your model, or the way that you can personally consistently replicate it. That's that's actually how I paint. Like, I paint to a way that I can replicate. Which is I don't think that's I think that's undersold sometimes. Like, if you can do it consistently over and over again, that's the way to do it, unless you want to challenge yourself.
Yeah, I'm actually considering starting an Emperor's Children army, but I think that it would end up being mostly a challenge for myself, because I've always said, like, I want to learn how to speed paint. I want to learn how to paint really fast up to like a pretty decent level. And I think in the new year, I'm going to challenge myself to do that on Emperor's Children. So I am constantly looking for new techniques that are going to help me to achieve something that looks amazing in a very little time. So I'm going to probably have tons of finishing moves coming up in the new year for everybody.
Oh, that sounds great. Nice. I actually love the fact that you're picking like a what might be an elite army. So not only if you do find a way to get it fast, you can get on the tabletop fast.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll ever even play it. Like, generally, Space Marines are not my favorite type of army to play. But I went out to mini wargaming and I played this really fun sort of battle report, and there's kind of a narrative that was established in that I feel like I need to bring out into the real world. And
all right,
part of that is an Emperor's Children army.
Do you know when that's going up for people to watch?
I think next.
I don't want you to spoil their release schedule. I don't know. It's like
I know the agreement was that they would try to get it out for next month.
Yeah. All right, that works.
For October.
Can't wait to shift people in that direction to watch what you did over there. It's always cool when you branch out and do some of those cool things. That's really this hobby basically that I wanted to talk about. This episode was kind of reinforcing that it is your way of doing it, and you can get tutorials and tips out there. People are going to tell you that that's not the way such and such works. Well, maybe it does on your planet, or whatever, and that's all that matters. 40,000 years from now, who knows how science is going to be?
Physics could completely change.
Yep. But I'm very excited about the effects of this balanced data slate, and looking forward to seeing how generals continue to adapt in that match play space. Now, y'all got anything to add before we wrap this up?
Nah.
All right. Next week, gonna look a lot of travel in between going on here in the next couple of weeks, including going to the Las Vegas Open Part 2. Which is going to be the first weekend in October. So, I understand it's in a new venue, and probably same format and stuff. But looking forward to seeing some folks there. If you're going to be there, let me know. I'm going to be talking about Warhammer, and then got some a convention. There'll be more news. We're going to be put out shows. Just want to keep everybody updated on what we're doing. If you can, please don't forget to hit those buttons that you're supposed to. The subscribes, leave us some 5-star reviews, leave some comments. Really appreciate that. Love some, got comments on YouTube and Spotify, and I think there's other places you can leave comments too. But I always try to interact them when I can. We'll be back as soon as we can next week, everybody. We'll see y'all.
See you.
Bye, everybody.